Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're living on Social Security, SSI or SSD, then you already know how tough it can be to make ends meet. Groceries, rent, prescriptions, the money just doesn't stretch far enough. But I have some breaking news you need to hear that could fundamentally change your financial situation in ways we haven't seen in decades. A major Social Security update is moving through Congress right now, and it could mean hundreds of extra dollars in your pocket every single month. We're talking about real money, not just promises that could change the way seniors, disabled Americans, and veterans live day to day. This isn't another political talking point or empty campaign promise. This is legislation with actual numbers, actual timelines, and actual support from people who understand what it means to choose between medication and meals. I know many of you are skeptical because politicians often talk big but deliver little. You've heard promises before that never materialized, watched debates that led nowhere, and seen your purchasing power shrink year after year while everything around you gets more expensive. But this time might be different, and I want to explain why this moment feels unlike anything we've seen in recent memory. Just last week, I was at the grocery store and saw an elderly woman counting out change for bread and soup. She was carefully separating her quarters and dimes, trying to make the math work, but she was still $3 short. I covered the difference without hesitation, and she told me she's surviving on just $841 a month from SSI. Think about that for a moment. $841 a month means she has less than $28 a day for everything: food, utilities, transportation, clothing, and any unexpected expenses that life throws at her. When you break it down further, that's less than $4 a day just for food. Sadly, her story isn't unique, and that brief encounter at the checkout line represents the reality for millions of seniors and disabled Americans across this country. They're not asking for luxury vacations or fancy dinners. They're asking for dignity, for the ability to buy groceries without counting pennies, for the chance to fill their prescriptions without rationing pills. And that's exactly why this new legislation matters more than any Social Security discussion we've had in years. The Social Security Expansion Act of 2025 isn't just another bill collecting dust in committee rooms. It proposes real, tangible changes that would immediately impact your daily life. We're looking at a $200 per month increase for all Social Security, SSI, and SSDI recipients. That's $2,400 more a year. That could mean the difference between surviving and actually living. But it goes much deeper than just that monthly boost. The legislation calls for SSI minimum payments to be raised to at least $1,200 for individuals and $1,800 for couples, recognizing that the current poverty level payments simply don't reflect the reality of modern living cost. For those waiting for SSDI benefits, the proposed elimination of the 5-month waiting period would provide immediate relief when people need it most. Anyone who's been through the SSDI application process knows how cruel that waiting period can be. You're already dealing with a disability that prevents you from working. You're navigating complex paperwork and medical evaluations, and then you're told to wait 5 months before receiving any support. This change alone would help hundreds of thousands of Americans avoid financial catastrophe during one of the most vulnerable periods of their lives. Veterans would see particular protection under this legislation, ensuring they don't lose Social Security benefits when receiving VIA benefits. For too long, our veterans have faced an impossible choice between different forms of support they've rightfully earned through their service. This legislation recognizes that serving your country shouldn't mean sacrificing financial security in retirement or during disability. Perhaps most significantly, the bill includes an update to SSI resource limits that haven't been adjusted since 1989. Let that sink in for a moment. 1989. That's over 3 decades of inflation, rising costs, and economic changes, yet the resource limits have remained frozen at $2,000 for singles and $3,000 for couples. Under the new legislation, these would increase to $10,000 for singles and $15,000 for couples, finally acknowledging that people need some basic financial security and emergency savings without being penalized. Now, let's talk about timing and payments, because I know that's what you care about most, especially with September payments happening right now. If your birthday falls between the 1st and 10th, your Social Security check arrives on September 10th. Those with birthdays between the 11th and 20th will be paid on September 17th, And if your birthday falls between the 21st and 31 stews, you'll receive your check on September 24th. Each payment this month already includes the 2.5% cost of living adjustment increase, but here's where things get really interesting for the future. Lawmakers are seriously considering a fundamental shift from the current consumer price index for urban wage earners and clerical workers formula to a new consumer price index for the elderly metric. This might sound like bureaucratic alphabet soup, but it's actually a game changer. The current formula looks at what working-age people spend their money on, but seniors and disabled Americans have completely different spending patterns. They spend proportionally more on healthcare, prescription drugs, housing modifications, and utilities, and less on things like work clothes, commuting costs, or childcare. The CPIE metric would better reflect these real costs that actually impact the people receiving Social Security benefits. Analysts project this could mean an additional $300 to $500 increase every month if adopted. That's potentially $3,600 to $6,000 more per year, money that would directly address the expenses that matter most in your daily life. That's not just extra pocket money, that's life-changing money for millions of Americans. It's the difference between choosing generic medications and getting the brand names your doctor prefers. It's being able to keep your thermostat at a comfortable temperature instead of wearing sweaters indoors during winter. It's having enough left over after essentials to occasionally take your grandchildren out for ice cream or buy birthday presents without stress. So, here's what you can do right now to stay informed and potentially influence this process. First, set up your My Social Security account at SSA.gov if you haven't already. This online portal lets you track your benefits 24/7, and you'll be among the over 97 million people already using this system to stay on top of their Social Security information. The platform has added new features recently, including an improved retirement calculator and instant access to benefit verification letters, making it easier than ever to manage your Social Security relationship digitally. More importantly, contact your representatives and tell them you support the Social Security Expansion Act. I know it might seem like politicians don't listen, but constituent feedback really does matter, especially when it comes from the people directly affected by these policies. Your senators and representatives need to hear from real people about real situations. They need to know about the woman I met at the grocery store, about your struggles to afford prescriptions, about the impossible choices you shouldn't have to make in one of the wealthiest countries in the world. Also, stay prepared for increased scrutiny by keeping careful records of your SSA letters, medical documents, and income reports. As Social Security modernizes and potentially expands, more frequent reviews and updated documentation requirements are likely coming. Being organized now will save you headaches later and ensure you don't miss out on benefits you're entitled to receive. Look, I'll be completely honest with you because you deserve nothing less than the truth. This bill won't pass overnight, and the legislative process can be frustratingly slow. There will be committee hearings, amendments, political maneuvering, and probably some setbacks along the way. But here's what gives me hope. This legislation has genuine bipartisan support and serious discussion in Congress, something we haven't seen with Social Security expansion in years. Even if this exact version doesn't pass in its current form, the conversation has fundamentally shifted. For the first time in years, leaders are talking about expanding Social Security benefits rather than cutting them or raising retirement ages. This represents a recognition that Social Security isn't just a government program, it's a promise to American workers that their contributions over decades of employment will provide dignity and security in their later years or during times of disability. It's an acknowledgement that the current system, while foundational and important, hasn't kept pace with the realities of modern life, modern healthcare costs, and modern economic challenges. So I want to hear from you, because your voices and experiences are what make this conversation real and urgent. How would an extra $200 or even $500 a month change your life? Would it mean finally being able to afford the medication your doctor wants you to take? Could you move to a safer neighborhood or make necessary home modifications? Would you be able to visit family members you haven't seen because travel costs were prohibitive? Tell me in the comments below. Your stories matter enormously, and they help illustrate exactly why these changes are so crucial for millions of Americans who have worked hard, paid into the system, and deserve better than barely scraping by. If this video helped you understand what's happening with Social Security and gave you hope for positive changes ahead, hit that like button, subscribe to stay updated on all Social Security news, and most importantly, share this information with friends or family who rely on SSI or SSDI benefits. The more people who understand what's at stake and what's possible, the stronger our collective voice becomes in pushing for these essential improvements.